Okay, Julie, here we are finally after a year of talking about this. We're finally on this great little hour of interviewing. We may go 40 minutes. I don't know how long, but I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you for letting me pick your brain and ask some amazing questions today. So here we are with Julie Kleine from Colors with Chemistry is your Instagram handle, right?
It is. Yes. Yes.
And tell me a little bit, Julie. So for people who've never seen you or don't know you, I always recognize your hair first off because I
Yeah.
love your hair. I love your gray streak and I love your purple. Like I always see your hair as like your branding, right? But tell me a little bit about your backstory because you are a hairstylist, but
I
now
am a
you're
hairstylist.
mentoring other people. So tell me a little bit about what's going on.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I never actually dreamed to be a hairdresser. I actually became a hairdresser at 38 years old. I went into the hair world at 34. I was working at a front desk at a high-end salon in Atlanta. And immediately they asked me if I wanted to start training. And it was 45 minutes away from my house. And I had a 3 and a 4 year old. And I was like, yeah, because they were like, it's full time. We're going to train you. It's going to be amazing. And I was like, but my kids. So I said no. And I said no for 4 years. And I actually remember working at the front desk thinking, yeah, I don't want to do that. That's like, because you watch the business and it's not always an easy thing to be a hairdresser. And I saw, the ups and the downs. And I was like, yeah, I enjoy this front desk. It's so
Yeah.
nice.
Well, and the front desk is so hard too. I feel like that's the hardest job in the salon sometimes.
It
You
is.
got,
It's just a different hard,
yeah,
right? It's just a different
truly.
hard. And it came to a point where, I mean, it was that time where everything was just really hard. I think it was 2008,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
where everything just kind of crashed. And that salon did not crash because it had been there for many years. It didn't even have a sign outside the front door. Most people would come by and go, what is this? And they
Wow.
were doing great. But after a few years, things got hard. And so they were like, well, we don't know if we can keep you on anymore. But what if you trained to be a hairdresser? And at that point, my kids were in middle school. And I was like, oh, they don't need me as much. It'll be great, which is hilarious if you're a parent out there. It's
Well, they
actually
need
the
you
opposite.
more.
Yeah, exactly. But I did. I started training. And I was a nervous wreck, but I was glad that I had trained in the front desk because I understood the business. I understood all different types of stylists. I understood clients, and I had learned my mentor. I did not go to hair school. I apprenticed, and not everybody gets to do that, but you do get to do that in Georgia. And so I was like, I have to be able to survive it, because he was not easy to work with. So but I did it. I remember getting going, and I didn't realize I was going to enjoy it as much as I did. And I enjoyed understanding what was going on and the why. And I had come from a career where we were always learning and growing and digging deep. And then I'm coming to the hair world and I'm trying to figure out how to do this and what's 20 volume versus 10 volume. And how do I know to do a 6 versus a 7? And I wasn't getting the answers. Like they were just surface answers. People had done hair so long that they were doing things, but not necessarily understanding what they were doing. So they couldn't verbalize it to me.
So they were telling you what to do, but not why they had chosen that.
Correct. But
Got it.
it made, which was good for them because it made them think, why am I? Why, do I?
Uh-huh.
And there were times where my mentor would get frustrated because he knew he couldn't answer me.
Oh,
So, you know what I mean? And so, but the frustration would come out on me sometimes. And
right.
so,
Who
so
was the
what he would,
teacher?
yeah. So what he would do was he would call in Brad. Now, Brad was one of the guys that helped supply our color line at the time, and he himself was a chemist. And so anytime there was a question he couldn't answer, he was like, he'd call in Brad. So Brad, here's what I knew. If you have a question, you go to the people that know, right? Like, because there are lines of people that are going to pass you on. So I went right to the people that know. And it was also interesting because my mentor wasn't necessarily following a manual. He
Mm,
was using chemistry because he understood the chemistry. He couldn't verbalize why he was doing what he was doing, but he knew how it worked
mm,
in terms of what it would do. So I got to I got to come into this hair world outside of a box, if you will. Like
hmm.
where I'm not in this is the manufacturer's manual and this is what you do. Now, when people hear me say that, I hope they are not hearing me say break all the rules. because that's not what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Because there's chemistry. You don't break the chemistry, if that makes sense. So,
Those are the principles, right?
so
Those are the things that never change.
right, you don't break the chemistry rules, if that makes sense. So those are sometimes a little different. And so I learned that, and I kind of learned outside the box, which was really cool. But then I had to start learning why things were happening, because I remember one day I was standing in front of this client, and it was trial by fire. Like everybody has trial by fire. Like you don't know what you're doing, but you have people in your chair and you're just trying to figure it out. He sat someone in my chair and he's like, I want you to figure out a formula in 35 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
Well, because,
Like a
okay,
pop quiz.
because I was an overthinker. I am an overthinker. I cannot change that. I have tried. It's just the way my makeup, it's who I am. It's actually kind of been the thing that's actually helped me become a great teacher.
Mhm.
So it's something I used to feel bad about. Now I actually feel really great about it. But
Good.
I remember him saying that, and I thought to myself, I have no idea where to start. And this is a problem, because if I am done with my apprenticeship, I'm lost.
Mm.
And I also saw someone in that in that salon who had been like 25, 30 years in, going to my mentor for help in formulating, because years ago, my mentor was like, in this salon, I will be the formulator and you will do my formulas.
Oh.
And so it was because he didn't trust that everybody knew how to formulate. And so he allowed that. And so
Mhm.
he's 25 years in, and he has a new client, and he's panicking because he doesn't know how to formulate. And I remember watching it. I was watching, and I went, that cannot be me.
Mm.
And so I started digging, like, if I can't get this information here, and I know that I got to go to somebody that knows, I started digging and looking and searching for people that knew what I needed to know. And I will tell you, it was like crawling and scraping to find information. And I was like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That it
To
was,
teach yourself.
yes. Well, during the day, when you're an apprentice in a salon, it is business. You are in the business. Business is number one. Your learning is second. So there was no learning during the day besides watching and asking questions when it was appropriate. I had to
Mhm.
learn that because I was asking a ton of questions while the client was there. And that's the client's time. So I was learning how and when to ask questions. But it was after I left the salon at home, that's when I was studying and learning the theory section, the whole part. So
Wow.
that was just the way it went. But at the same time, I remember calling a friend of mine who actually did apprentice there as well. And she had, done it years before. And I was like, Kelly, how do you know why he's mixing or why we're mixing, XYZ? She's like, well, don't just mix it. Ask yourself why. And I went, okay, that's great, but somebody has to answer my why, and I can't answer it. So I remember bumping into David Valesco's books. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think I've seen them. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was like years
Color.
ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think he works now with Product Club. His books are with Product Club, or I think they're videos now. But I remember bumping into it, and I remember going, this is what I want to learn. And I remember him talking about color in a way where he was saying, this is what the book will tell you, but here's what's really going on. And I went, yes, because that's what we're seeing. And then I remember coming into the salon, and this was a big lesson for me. Young, new, don't know what I'm talking about, reading someone else's information and going to my mentor and saying, well, this is how David says.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
did
yeah.
you ask questions about his formulas and like question them?
Yeah, but not in a
Okay.
malicious way. Like
Sure,
I'm
sure.
trying to learn, but I remember the woman that was at the front desk, she was the manager, and she gave me a nice lesson. She said, you have to earn the right to come in and question him in that kind of way. So learn what you're learning. Don't not learn it, but be careful how you come in.
Mm. Mm.
Don't come in like because you've read this book.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's
Right.
this balance of how do I communicate this information so I can continue learning with someone who maybe knows it but doesn't know how to communicate it. But I'm learning from someone who knows how to communicate it. So it was an interesting little
Huh.
time there.
Yeah.
But
That's not like most people go to school and then they do an associate or assistant program or apprentice program and then they go
if
on the
they're
floor.
lucky, if
If
they're
they're
lucky,
lucky. Yeah.
if they're
Very
lucky,
small percent if they're lucky.
yeah.
But it sounds like you were all apprentice the whole time for a couple of years, and then you went on the floor. And how did it go in the beginning?
It was fine. I did well because I was the first day I was an apprentice, I had a chair.
Oh, wow.
And I was right next to my mentor. I stood there, handed him foils. I mixed everything for him. That he sat people in my chair. I immediately learned to blow dry, which is hilarious for a curly girl.
Yeah, I bet. You had
I,
a thermal brush and stretching it out.
well, I didn't. I was like, how do you turn this thing on? How do you? I mean, it was ridiculous. At 38 years old, I'm going, how do you pump up a salon chair? How do you turn the dryer on? How do you hold the brush? I never blew my hair dry. I
Oh my.
mean, learning how to blow dry was like a little thorn in my side.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, like I would blow it dry by I had a hair cutting mentor and a color mentor, and my hair cutting mentor was the one that worked with me with the blow dries and the cutting and all that. And she would look, and she meant business, which I appreciated. Not at the time, but after, she's like one of my best friends now. And I was like, I'm so grateful for you, Julie, because she would look at the hair and she'd go, there's a dent in there. And I could not see the dent. I'm like, what dent? Like, she was like, and she wouldn't let us pass that one length haircut until it was like, you got that corner right, and I was like, but what corner? Like, it was just so good because she pushed us to make sure we were doing our very best. It
Amazing.
was, yeah, we were not just getting by. She
Mhm.
was going to make sure we were doing it right. And I so appreciate that she did that for me because it really set my grounding and my foundation that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my mentor always said too, he said, listen, even those little baby hairs at the front, he said, you do what no one else will. Like these are the foundations, right? And
Nice.
those things set some pretty awesome things, some grounding for me that I was like, this isn't just getting by. This
Yeah.
is doing your best work.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, so after working in the salon, I understand that you don't work in the salon anymore. You don't work on customers because you are like an online educator for hair colorists.
Yeah. So there's like a big gap there. So after I left that salon, it was 3,000 hours to apprentice. I was working there. I was 45 minutes away. I kind of had to make a decision on whether I was going to build my clientele there, which is 45 minutes away or nearby. And then of course I realized my kids needed me nearby. So I actually wound up leaving that salon and coming up closer to where I work, where I live. And that was an interesting time too, because I had trained on Schwarzkopf. And
Mhm.
I was afraid to walk in and work at a salon that was not Schwarzkopf because I didn't know how to convert color line.
Okay. So you had to start all over with your education. Wow.
I did. And I started in a new salon and I wound up picking a culture that wasn't best for me because of the color brand, which
Mm,
is also this is like it's like everything in your career starts to put little like, things in your mind, like it's setting you up for where you're going to go, you know.
hmm.
And so what I realized was like, I cannot choose the salon based on color line because this culture is not for me. I wound up going to another salon. And the only reason she wasn't Schwarzkopf, but what she did say was, I will help you convert. And she was so convincing and all that, that I was like, okay, I feel comfortable.
Right.
And so when I did go to that next salon, she was a master in her line. But as soon
Mhm.
as I got there, she wound up converting to a whole nother line. So she had two different lines. So I'm coming from Schwarzkopf, having to learn two different lines. And then when I get there, she converts to a different line
Oh my goodness.
that she doesn't know. And no one there knows how to convert
My gosh.
because you know your color line and you
Right.
don't know convert. You know what I'm saying? There's a big difference between mastering your line and knowing hair color across the board. So she switched to another line. We're all struggling. And they send in, color educators, and a color educator that they sent in doesn't know how to convert. They know their line. And I'm thinking, this is wild. Then she got mad because something happened with her order and then she switched again.
Oh
This
no.
is within 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm pulling out this client's hair that like my regular clients, and I see this color line, this color line, this color banding,
Mm.
right? And so that is
Different
also,
shades of the same color, different shades. Yeah.
you got it. And because different undertones, this color line 6N is going to fade different than this color line 6N or whatnot because of the way that those intermediates are created in that particular line. And so I remember thinking to myself, nobody here really knows how to convert. And when I was struggling, I had to get so much help from everybody else. So what was happening was I wasn't getting formulas from other people that were really working out.
Mm.
And I went, I have got to stop relying on other people. I would get, here was my immature mind. I was mad at them,
Oh, yeah.
right? Because they weren't giving me the right formula. Or if it didn't turn out, they didn't apologize. And I went, whoa, whoa, whoa. I had to take a minute and I went, it's my fault because I'm the one, this is my career. It's
Mhm.
my name on my master cosmetology license. And I'm allowing myself to depend on everybody else because I'm not taking the time to learn hair color and learn how to convert. And so that was literally where the beginning of the catapult to what I do today. So in the midst of that, I was debating on whether I wanted to join a color company to educate because I've always loved education.
Mhm.
And so I wound up joining Matrix. I was with them for a little while, became a national trainer. While I'm learning hair color, I'm gaining all this information and knowledge. And they're going, whoa, she really knows some stuff. So I'm sharing it with them. And they're like, well, let's just, help her become a national trainer because she can pass it on. And so I did. And that was an exciting time, except there are certain limits you have when you teach with a color line, right? Like you need to teach the color lines methodology, the way they, talk about formulating, all of that.
Backgrounds, undertones, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, there are laws that you
Mhm.
have to follow when you're, and you are working for someone else. And so I just realized I was limited in what I was allowed to teach or communicate and what I felt like a stylist needed to know. So after I had been a national trainer, I was like, I think it's time to separate ways. I loved working with the color line. I think they're amazing. I just knew for me and what I wanted to teach and communicate, I needed more of an open door.
Yeah.
So that's when Colors with Chemistry was born. It was actually born while I was training. I was a national trainer for them. I was actually starting Colors with Chemistry side by side, and then finally I was like, I just got to focus on this. And so then here we are, 4 years later,
Nice.
teaching
Well, and
hair
let's
color.
and here's the thing, like your videos are so different and your training is so different. Look, when I see your Instagram videos, they're colorful, they're bright, they're mostly of just your hands.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I love them because it really zeroes in on the subject quickly and explains it. And the way you explain things is fabulous. And people in my program, the Hairstylist Accelerator program, I do recommend that they check out your videos. And even, I think I even took something that I saw of yours and I said, okay, well, I'm going to say it in a different way and show it with a different model and to see if understanding, is easier or different and it's just so great. I love all of your education and videos. And I always recommend, obviously if people watching this podcast or listening to this podcast aren't following you already on Colors with Chemistry on Instagram, it's a fabulous resource, especially for newer hairstylists, because understanding, you said it earlier, you said that there's a big difference between understanding the color line and understanding hair color.
Yes,
And
yes.
that's really where you have separated from others, I feel like, and just done an amazing job teaching the scuba diving into the basics and kind of deep diving further into it and explaining why behind. Now, let me ask you, how did you so I asked this to a lot of my podcast guests. So I'm just going to ask you now, like
Yeah.
knowing all that you know and all
Mhm.
that, if you were to go back to the beginning of your career, what things would you focus on if you were to start over? You didn't necessarily go to beauty school,
Mm-mm.
but let's say you did go to beauty school and you came out and maybe you were still apprenticing or you were an associate or whatever. What would you do different? If you were to go back and start over, knowing what you know now, all the way past through all your experiences, what would you do different?
Okay, I actually I wouldn't do anything different. I
Okay.
wouldn't, and I'll tell you why. Um, when I heard something, I did what I heard.
Okay.
And that's what I feel like is lacking for a lot of people right now. Like you will watch a video and you're overwhelming your mind with information and you're not stopping and saying, let me do this.
So
Let
don't watch.
do watch and do.
Yes,
Watch and
yes.
do. Now, there are stylists that they're afraid of learning the theory because they're very artistic and whatnot. Maybe that's not their jam or whatever. So they just go and do.
Right.
And then you've got stylists that are theory people. They love the theory, but they don't do because they're afraid that if they do it and it doesn't work out, they're going to feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? So
Totally.
you got this balance between, there's a lot of different types of learners, and everybody's way of learning is right for them as long as they get to that final end result. What I have seen, and we've taught stylists in over 27 countries right now. And I'm going to tell you there's a pattern. The people that blow it out of the park for themselves are the people that do both.
Mm.
They take the theory and then they actually apply or practice when the pressure is low on swatches in their own time while they're coloring. They literally dye out the color that they've created. Like, they're learning while they are working, and they reduce the resistance to practice.
Beautiful.
So
they're learning on low stress time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not on their color correction client that just walked in.
Yes.
Gave a $600 quote to that they're going to have to now do something for the first time, but they're working on their swatches, maybe working on their mannequins, maybe their friends, and learning as they're doing while they're learning.
Yes. Because we can show it to you. And now that's in your mind, but you don't know if it works or not until you do it. And you don't know
something you suggest that stylists do during their downtime, because newer stylists who are newer in the industry, they're like trying to build their clientele, and it's hard right now, and some people are slow. And so do you suggest they do that on their downtime, like even in the salon?
100%. Like, I will post on my Instagram page the things that I did. I still have pictures. Like, one of the things that was always challenging and nerve-wracking for me was I was the one to pull my mentor's foils when they were done. And he would say, I want her lifted to this level, or I want her to lift it to this level. And I would always doubt myself because I didn't know what a level 8 would look like, or a level, we would joke around with level 22, certain people. And so what I did was I took natural hair. So anybody that gets a haircut, they have virgin hair, you save it. You label it natural. If you don't label it natural versus colored, you will regret it. Ask me how I know. And you label it and you save it in a bag, and you get your little hair ties, or however people do it a million different ways. I like the little hair bands. And you literally take that hair and you take a remaining pigment chart and you lift it up to the different levels. You stop it at the level, and you're practicing seeing what that level looks like with lightener and wet.
Yeah. So on one of your videos, you did that. You held the 3 hairs and you had, I think, 20, 30, and 40 volume on 3 sets of natural hair, so you could see the lift. So they could even just do what you're showing in your videos.
That's the intention. That's the absolute. I am literally modeling for you what to do.
Nice.
And it drives me cuckoo when I model it and someone says, oh, I would like to have seen it like this. And I'm thinking to myself, that's the perfect thing for you to do. We are literally showing you and getting you started, igniting your practice. Do not come to my page and ask me to do the work for you, because then I learned and you didn't.
Right, right. That makes sense. Oh my, yes. Now, so if a new stylist right now coming out of school, right? Let's say new stylist, maybe not Julie a long time ago, new stylist today. It's very different now than how when we started doing hair, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So now, what do you think that a new stylist should focus on the most, like during this time, that would really help them the most? Do you think, is it just color theory or practicing or clients?
I think it's both. Like, I think there's such a big focus on technique, like how to apply the highlight so it looks feathered, how to apply so you get dimension. Those are great. Application and learning techniques, how to foil, how to balayage, how to back comb, how to air touch. Those are great. You have to connect it also with theory. Well, how does a 10 volume lift versus a 20 volume? If I put this formula on her head with a 10 volume and a 20 volume, what is the end result going to be? What's the difference? Like the theory and the technique. And I here's why I say that. We have so many seasoned stylists that come to visit us and come to our classes without the basic theory knowledge. And it's because there was so much focus on technique and not a lot of theory. Like you go around and you're like, where's the theory? It's very hard to find. And it
Yeah.
shouldn't be. Like what we do is based on so much theory. And I kind of like, in terms of analogies, I'm like, it's like a conveyor belt of information that we go through when there's a client in the chair and there's hair in the chair and we're going, we need to figure out what to do to move this hair over here. And you got a conveyor belt of knowledge up here you got to pick from.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't fill that, you're going to be lost. Like, you're going to be like, I don't even know what to pick from. I don't have enough to pick from.
Right.
To decide what I need to do. And so you kind of have to fill your knowledge bank and your theory bank. And to me, it's like an onion, the aha moments.
Yeah.
No matter how hard you try, you want them all at one time. They will never come that way.
Right. Exactly.
I'm sure you know that.
Your programs, I was looking at your programs because you have different like layers of programs that you offer people. Now, my program is one comprehensive program of cut, color, and cutting.
Yeah.
I do touch on the theory and the science behind why things happen. However, yours is broken down into little smaller subjects, bite size, which I think was great for a newer stylist. And if you were to pick like one, what do you think would be the first one? Like
for a newer stylist, it would be the basics of color theory, because it just gets you learning the wheel, learning the labels. Like if you say copper, where is copper on the wheel?
Yeah, right.
We have to know that, right? Because if we're shooting for copper, we need to know that's the target.
Right. And there's light copper, medium copper, and dark copper.
And muted copper, blended copper, and vibrant copper, right? Thinking in terms of the 3 dimensions of color. So yeah, and I'll tell you, it's really interesting when we go over the basic overview of the wheel in class, how many people don't know where beige is? How many people don't know where mahogany is? Like, there's color theory words, and then there are hairdressers' words that go with color theory. So you got to go, here's color theory, and where do our words, where do they fit in color? And so when you capture those things, it's like a release of pressure, I guess, if you will.
Yeah, and it's so important that you're doing all this, because it makes the foundation super strong. So then the stylist can go on and learn about foil placement and the techniques, and like you said, and they'll have something to think with, like what are they going to put in their foil if they place it there? Like that whole thing of lightening hair is just such a ginormous subject in itself, whether it's double process blonding or in foils or doing color correction. So I love that you cover so much of this, and it's
yeah. Well,
now,
even that, like,
go ahead.
Even with like understanding how natural hair lives, like we get these like underlying pigment charts that are straight up, like that's only like this much of the story.
Yeah, they're on a piece of paper.
Oh yeah, and I have this one. Like I would look at this and I would get so mad when I would see these, because I was like, that is not what I see when I lift hair at a level 6 with permanent color. So there's more to the story. Yeah. There's more to the story, right? And you get, these are little guides. They're just like a little hint of information.
Sure.
There's more. And so it's like, I wanted to learn the more, so I understood what was going on when natural hair lifts, not just what colors is going to go through, but what is literally happening. Because if I want to lift the hair, I can control it better if I know what's going on. If I know my chemicals and what they do, and I know this natural level 6 or this natural level 3, this is kind of the stages it will go through as it lifts. If I use this volume or this level, then it puts me in the driver's seat.
Right. And there's different people with different kinds of melanin in their hair, and they will lift differently. Like this person who's a redhead from Ireland and England will lift differently than someone who is Greek or Swedish. Like their melanin is different in their hair because there's different kinds of natural melanin in their hair. When you talk about the science and the theory behind it, and then you learn that.
Yes. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated. Like, which is why, going back to your what you were saying about the visuals, when I was learning this stuff, it was all reading and it was all very sciencey and very auditory when I would hear it. And I was like, hairstylists are visual.
Yes.
We need to take the complex and put it into a simple visual, because we don't need to be afraid of the science. right? And so I remember having a mentor one time. He's very sciencey, which is great. I can learn that, but not all hairstylists want to hear that or can learn that or feel excited about that. So I would take the information and make it simple. Now, that's hard sometimes for scientists because it's not super it's not the most accurate. No cartoony version will ever be, but it gives the concept in a way where hairstylists won't be afraid of it. And they go, oh, it's not as complex as I thought. And it's like, no, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
So
Well,
we'll,
you use little colored cards and use
I mean,
Diamond water and you use clay and you use
yes.
paint and you use the little brushes. It's just fabulous the way you show stuff. So I love that.
Well, thanks.
It does make a difference in the way you explain the theory and the science.
Mhm.
So, um, what else do you feel like if you could uh, send a message to a new stylist who's graduating this year or going to be going into a salon to work for the first time? Like, what helpful tips would you give them? Like right
Ask a lot of questions. Ask why. If
now?
someone tells you to use this formula to tone, ask why. Why did you choose this tone? Why did you choose two parts of that tone and one part of that tone? Why did you decide to use 20 volume versus 10? Because it will help you learn, but Lori, when we teach, we learn,
Yeah, for sure.
right? So everybody learns in
For
that
sure.
situation because then you go, okay, if I'm doing this for years, you literally have to ask yourself, why am I doing that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it helps you to start to learn to verbalize. So everybody's learning. Ask a ton of whys and do not base what you do on what other people are doing around you.
Nice. I love that. And what about the subject of fear? You know, so many people talk about the hair colorists, that I talk to have anxiety over trying new things, or they're fearful about the client that just was booked and they have all of this built up stuff getting ready to color and do things they've never done before.
Yes.
How do you address that with people who have that feeling that I think it's normal feeling. I mean, I remember being scared to death to try something for the first time, still am.
Yes.
And how do you address that with people? Like, what would you recommend for them to do it?
I think you're right. There's no way through it but to do it. And
Mm.
I remember
You
feeling that
make a t-shirt out of that. There's no
I
way
am
I'm
through it
gonna
but to
write that
do it.
down.
No way through it but to do it. Well, everybody feels that fear. And so when you feel it, you're normal. We don't always all talk about it.
Mm.
And that I remember being young as a hairdresser and thinking, why is no one talking about the fear? Is it only me? Am I the anxious one? Apparently, no.
Yeah.
Uh, Apparently, it is a very normal thing and it doesn't fully ever go away. Um, and I actually had a conversation with the new hairdresser one time, and I have it on my Instagram page, but we kind of wrote it out, and I was like this. When you first start, you're going to be afraid, kind of like when you drive a car, you don't know what you're doing. And so the only way to get better is to drive the car, right? And then after a while, you don't actually think about the things you used to think about. Like I remember the first time I did my one length haircut and how much time it took me to literally think through what I was doing. I was slower because there was a lot more thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got better, it became mechanical. It was just habitual. Like it was muscle memory. There was a lot of muscle memory that happened. And it's kind of like the same thing when you drive a car. Half the time you're like, how did I get here? I turned the key, like I fixed my mirrors, like you don't even realize that you're doing what you're doing because it's become ingrained in you. But if you go to a new city in a car as a seasoned driver, you're going to feel a little bit more heightened. And
Yeah.
it's not because you know how to drive the car, is that you're in a new city. You're in a
Well,
new context. And so it's like, as seasoned hairdressers, when we try something new, that's normal. And I think it's been interesting too that as you get older and more seasoned, it's harder to put yourself in a newer learning situation because it's hard to go back to feeling that way.
mm-hmm.
And we
Well, I
avoid
feel
it.
like in the beginning, newer stylists they feel like that about everything, color and cutting and blow drying. And, they can be overwhelmed if they don't have like a path or a program to just take
Yes.
them through the important parts to know to get them floor ready or to get them, to go from rookie to more of a pro level. So again, I love what you've done with your education, your online and virtual, and I think you do live education too, right?
We do 95% virtual.
Okay.
And here's why I say, and some people love it. And here's why we love it, because we can give you more after class support. You
Mm,
get replays, you get after class, like there's more contact. When you're at a city, you fly into a city, you're there and you leave. Like, I don't know if you got it or not.
yeah, good
I,
point. Unless you're getting recordings, it's tough. You're right.
yes. And so it's like, how do I know? Um, I always call it, like, we don't like to dump and run.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Moody actually did a reel the other day about it. He's like, you don't know if people really got it until like a little bit after your class,
Yeah.
like checking in. What did you
Yeah.
capture? What did you not capture?
Uh-huh.
Right. And I will tell you, Lori, there is not one class that we do that is the same every time. And my team, oh my gosh, I drive them a little crazy because I'm like, okay, every time we do a class, I update the agenda at least 3 or 4 times before we do the class every time. I
Yeah.
can't help it because you know what? Because we learn what's working and what's not working.
I have total reality with that. Trust me. I can't tell you, I've written agendas at 3 in the morning before the class the next day, many
Yeah,
times.
yeah.
Many times.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
I love what you're doing too. We were chit-chatting a little bit before we started today, but I love that it's really cool how as stylists we're kind of filling the gaps that we see. Like I love that you have this program that helps for the newer stylists that literally have no foundation outside of school. So you're literally taking from them their from that moment and preparing them. And I
Mhm.
love that you make that available to salon owners because, you know, there's so much going on as a salon owner, right? And so now knowing how to, run your salon, but also to have clients, but then also how to train. And so I
Yeah.
love that that's available to them too. I recently had a salon owner reach out to me and she's like, I got somebody super new,
Mhm.
no background. Where do I start?
Right. Well,
So
and salon owners are not supposed to know and how to build a training curriculum for an advanced stylist. And honestly, my program has been super helpful for so many people and still is, but I'm going to be building like a mini, a medium, and a maxi version of it because some stylists we hire who have, let's
yes,
say, 5 years experience in the industry and they've mastered some of this stuff, but not all of like they just need to fill
yes,
in the holes.
yeah,
And that's, I feel like if somebody doesn't have a really strong color theory or an understanding of the chemistry behind it, I'll usually recommend that they go to your page. But also I do address it in my program, but
yeah.
different every single person, every human I've ever talked to in their learning journey has
Mhm.
had to have some sort of customization.
Yes, yes, yes. I love
Right?
that. Yes,
It's
yes.
just not everybody gets the same thing, even if you were to put them through the same training. So that's why I love that we all have these tools to help stylists. So we're on the same page with all of that. And I love what
Yes.
you're doing.
Well, I love that you said that because we were in a class on Monday and it's like, and this is how you get better as an educator too. You can't have one way to explain something
Mm, right.
because we had like 11 people in this class and we would explain it 3 different ways. And it's like the third or fourth way, this person got it. But
Mm,
2 ways back, that person got it. And it was
mhm.
like, how many ways can you explain chroma? Like, let's explain it this way. Let's explain it this way. And then halfway through the class, they go, oh, that's what that is. And it's like, yes, the thing that we explained 2 hours ago, now you captured it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yes. And it's like, you never know when that person's going to have their moment.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's retrospective.
Sure. Sure.
Like I've got people texting me like 3 or 4 days after the class going, my light bulb went off, like I was mixing color in the back room and I just went, whoa. I
Yes,
was like,
because then they're
yes,
applying it to real life, and that's where
yes,
real learning happens. To show
yeah.
someone something is different than to then have them do it and see it for themselves. That's like the big thing. And I think it's
Those
educators.
two, right? They're huge,
Mhm.
which is what we've learned over the years. Like we can't leave the class and say, hey, you guys try this. We literally go email, try this activity, this specific activity, try this specific activity, and it's like reminders because life is overwhelming. And like you said, Lori, now there is so much information that comes at us every day. It is information overload.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that is actually, this is something I would suggest for someone new. This is what I did. I literally had like a group of 5 that I would listen to, and I would have to drown out everybody else.
Mm-hmm. So
Be-
find your key people that you want to
yeah,
model after, model, mimic, and master, and just stick
yeah.
to those people
For
instead
now,
instead of going out into the sea of learners.
yes, I had hair cutters. And so it's like in every area, hair cutters,
Mhm.
formulators, applicators, but highlighters, like, and there was a small group and I had to literally drown it out. Now, as I moved along in my learning, I would change those,
Mhm.
right? Because you change. And the
Right.
people that
Right.
I would go to before, they helped me in that beginning stage. But
Mhm.
now I'm no longer in the beginning stage. I'm here.
Right.
So who's out there that's sharing or giving classes or whatnot that will help me in this stage? And
Right.
then, yeah, yeah. And I feel like, that's going to be huge because you will paralyze yourself
Mhm.
if you listen to too many cooks in the kitchen. Yeah.
Sure. And it's just mind numbing. It is like
Yes.
it's analysis paralysis, right? So it's mind numbing and you don't actually do it. I was talking to someone, actually a stylist in my salon the other day about updos, and she was saying, "Oh, don't you love this educator on Instagram? They do so many amazing updos." And she's watched and watched and watched. And I said, let's go put that into a head. Like, here's a head,
Yes.
go do it. Because
Yes.
until you do it, that learning isn't really real, right?
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing to get people to do the do.
Yes. Do the do.
Do the do.
I
If
saw
you
a
want to
quote.
do, and here's the other thing, like people say, "Oh, how do you get to this level when you just are comfortable and confident?" Well, if you want to have and you want to be where I'm at and you want to get where I'm at, you got to do what I did.
That's
You
exactly
got
what
to
they said.
do the do to get to that other
Yes.
side.
Don't do what Lori's doing today. Do what Lori did to get to where she is today.
Got to do the did. Yes.
Yes. Do the did. Yeah.
You did. Actually, John Maxwell talks about that.
Oh, he
I
does.
was in a John Maxwell program earlier this year, and he talked about that. He was a mentor to a younger, I don't know if it was a pastor or somebody, but he was talked about you got to do the did to get to where I'm at, to see
Yeah.
what you did to get to do. And so those are his words, but not mine. Do the did.
Some, Sometimes you have to slow down to go faster. Actually, you do have to slow down to go faster because, like you said, like you can sit and watch and watch and watch and watch, or you can even take course after course after course. But if you don't stop at the stoplight, right, and do, like you said, the did, and it will feel like you're slowing down. That's good.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you're good, and you will feel bad before you feel good. And
Okay.
that's the part that's challenging. You have to be desperate enough that you're okay feeling a little bad when you try it at first, to stop and you think everybody's passing you by,
Mhm.
but actually you slowing down is going to catapult you past where they think they're going.
Nice. Good, good. I love that so much. I'm taking tons of notes over here, by the way.
Oh,
It's
we
so
should
great.
talk about a little bit more, Lori. I'm sure we could
Yeah,
share more and more and
we
more notes with
should.
each other.
We should. We've got all these years of learning.
Yeah.
So who is your mentor? Like, who helps you? Who do you have that you like? I listen to John Maxwell and I'm part of Grant Cardone's 10X group. And, I
Yeah.
have my people that I love, Daniel Mason Jones, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And, people I've connected with over the years. And I saw you at a program with him not long ago. That's where I got to meet you in person finally.
Yes.
Who do you look at? Where do your eyeballs spend time on? Either books or videos or Instagram people? Who helps you?
Okay, there's a couple of people. It's like at this stage in my career, I have my 5.
Sure.
So, Valerie George, she's a cosmetic chemist. She's a friend of mine. She is a great resource and help and support. So, if I have any questions about the chemistry side that we're teaching, she supports us so we can make sure we're giving the best information we can.
Mm-hmm.
She's one of my favorites. I have another one, but some of them have, NDA, so I can't share their names. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I have, for color theory, David Briggs is one of my favorites.
Okay.
He's one of my favorites. Stephen Westland. They're like color professors.
Mm-hmm.
color science teachers. And so I'm actually doing a webinar for David soon. It's the art and science of creating successful hair color. And I'm doing it for the Color Society of Australia. So I'm excited and nervous at the same time because I'm going to be talking to like color scientist people, um, and sharing what we do as hairdressers. And it's kind of exciting because I get to share, like, we're not just hairdressers. Here's all the things that we have to think through to create successful hair color. And as I'm creating this class and for the webinar, I'm thinking, wow, we really do know a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm. We
You know
do.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what we have to
Brilliant.
think through is a lot.
Yeah. So
Um,
true.
yeah,
Brilliant. Brilliant. I love that.
yeah. So of course, Daniel Mason Jones. I love listening into the business side, Britt Siva.
Okay.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, I loved listening to
Mm.
her. I love Gordon Miller. I love
Oh, yeah.
Gordon. Mm-hmm.
Yes. I'm trying to get him on my podcast. Gordon, if you're listening,
Yes, come
please come
Gordon.
on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think of anybody else that I go to these days, but Peter Donahue, he's the color nerd. He actually he's allowed us to use one of his visuals in class, which has been a brilliant.
Great.
Yeah, so just and in the hair world, um, he works with Tabanis. I always feel like I'm never going to say his name right, but Roche or Rock LeMay. He's one of my favorites to watch. We connect and encourage one another.
Great.
It's what we're doing, and so I love what he does. He loves what I do. We use the concepts and we speak them differently,
Mm-hmm.
but they're the same concepts. So, and I think I love that about the hair world. As you mature, there's this group of people that will support one another, and you're doing the same thing. So in a sense, you're competing, but you're not competing, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Well, and that saying that I've heard so many times this year, competition happens at the bottom and collaboration happens at the top.
Yeah. Well, and
Absolutely.
I like those collaborators because I respect them, and there's mutual respect, which is really kind of fun and cool. And
Mhm.
you just need support when you're supporting other people. And
True that.
sometimes, when you're educating, it can feel lonely at times.
Mhm.
Especially on social media. Social media is a interesting place.
Yeah. Well, when that student reaches out to you and says, "Oh my gosh, I got it," and aha, oh, I totally get it. I can now formulate my toners confidently, or whatever it is that's going on in their head. That makes you feel so amazing. So, any students out here that you're listening to this, or if anything clicked with you, or if you've had a leader, teacher, or mentor help you, reach out to them and tell them how much you appreciate that they've helped you, because it is a very kind of a lonely, it is kind of a lonely world out,
Yeah.
educating if you're not in person, especially with the programs that are in person now. There's a lot of live learning, but
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was interesting. I ran into someone at Premier Orlando, and she said something I thought was brilliant, in case anyone else is educating and feels this too. But she said, people don't reach out when you've done good for them. They reach out when they're mad. Like,
Hmm.
don't we all? Like, if something happened, we're like, I don't like what happened to my hair. But if you liked it, you're like, inside, you're enjoying that you liked it, or you're telling your friends, but you forget to tell the person,
Yeah.
hey, thanks so much.
Well,
It's
that's a
that,
life lesson all
yes,
across the boards.
right, right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah. And it's a good reminder for me too, to do that for those that help me. So yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you for being on today. I really appreciate you. To find Julie Klein, you can find her at Colors with Chemistry on Instagram. I feel like that's
Yeah.
where I find you, but is there another place or something that is
Yes,
it
we have a
a
website,
website? Okay,
colorswithchemistry.com. Just keeping it simple.
great. I love that. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. And I hope all of our listeners got a lot out of this today. And if you have any questions for Julie, you can send her a DM. Any questions for me, you can send me a DM on Hairstylist Accelerator Program on Instagram, and or Lori Fudence _Redkin. So thank you so much again for how, do you have any parting words or anything else you wanted to say or mention today?
Just, there's a quote I did the other day from Henry Ford. Like, if you think you can't or you think you can, you're right.
Oh, yes.
Don't forget that.
Okay. So if you think you can't or you think you can, you're
You're
right.
right.
Either way.
Yeah. Henry Ford.
Sweet. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here, and
Thanks for
we'll see
having me.
you again soon.
Bye, everybody.